Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Delighted to have in the studio with us today Southern Oregon's eclectic candidate. He is a Republican, but he also got the Democratic nod and Libertarian nod, and I think every other nod that's out there, running totally unopposed. Great to have with us today, Southern Oregon Representative Sal Esquivel. How you doing, bud? Good to see you.
Fine. Good to see you, Perry.
Keeping you busy, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Well, here you are, a couple of weeks out. Got a lot of quick things to talk to you about. First of all, how does it look in the House? Do you think the Republicans have a chance to take the State House?
I think we have a good chance. Right now we're at 26 to 34, and we have a very good chance to pick up 3 to 5 seats. So we could be just shy of the majority, if not tied or in the majority. So it's going to depend upon those last 2 seats. But we have 3 real good seats I think we can pick up.
Good, and the polling looks good in those areas.
Looks very good.
And I know you're not in the Senate, you were for a short time, but how does it look over there? I understand that's kind of a hot spot too.
That's going to be either, it'll remain the same, will be at a tie again, which when I went in the Senate was in a tie, 15-15. Right. Or we could take the majority, and that's 3 races that are very important there. That's the Bates-Daughter race down here in Southern Oregon. It's the Betsy Close-Sarah Gelser race in the Albany-Benton County, Lynn-Benton County area.
I got a little press today. I see.
Did it?
Yeah, well, I guess apparently she ran an ad that nobody likes.
Who was that?
Betsy Close.
Betsy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Must have been truthful.
Yeah.
Then there was the one that Peter Courtney has his hand full because he's running against a very popular former county commissioner, and Patty Millen, I think is her name. Very popular. So that'll be interesting to see how that one comes out.
Wow. All right, well, the ballots are out. There's no excuse for not filling them and putting them back.
I've already done mine.
Have you?
Yes, I have.
Good boy. All right, I'll probably do mine tonight. But anyway, the ballots are out. Well, listen, a couple quick things to talk to you about. First of all, the governor's mess.
Oh.
I mean, all right, it's one thing to have Cover Oregon, which is a mess, but now he's got all these other credibility issues going on with his fiancée and everything else. Is he in trouble?
Well, I think the governor is in serious trouble. I think Dennis Richardson, the difference I see between the governor and Dennis is that the governor makes excuses and Dennis has solutions. That's the big difference I see. The governor has squandered, in my opinion, over $500 million of taxpayer money. You talk about Cover Oregon, that's about $300 million. But let's look at the bridge that we've never started on the Columbia River at $196 million. Let's also look at the fiasco in DHS for $50-60 million. Let's also look at Rudy Cruz, whom he hired, and what we did is we funded him finding a job throughout the United States. So there's a lot of baggage here. There's also a situation in the employment department that cost about $8 or $9 million. So there's a lot of things that the governor has not paid attention to and not been a very good steward of people's money in the state of Oregon. And that's what Dennis is going after him for. And rightfully so, it's accountability.
All right. Does that message you just shared with us, do you think it's resonating among the liberals in the Tri-County area?
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't.
I mean, we know the Tri-County area kind of, you know, it runs the state in so many ways.
Well, it does in a lot of ways. It depends upon how fired up those people get to come out and vote. I think that's a bit more than anything. I think the conservative aspect of Oregon are very fired up. I think they're going to turn out. And that's one thing we need to talk about. 1 in 5 Republicans stay home all the time. If we had those 1 in 5 vote, we would win every statewide election. You know that. You've run the numbers.
Yeah, I've run the numbers.
And so what we're doing in Jackson County is literally Jan and I went out. We went out and had 20 or 30 people that we told them that we're going to check on them to make sure that they vote. And if you don't like looking at me, just vote.
Okay. Well, it is get out the vote. I mean, and there's no excuse when the ballot's sitting there in your hands right now. Cover Oregon, huge mess. What is your solution to the mess?
Well, I'm not sure I have a solution in the aspect that you know, I'm not in on the real, you know, inner workings of the situation. The only thing I can say is that we're going to end up on the federal system is what we'll end up on, I think. And So we've basically
Boy, now
taken
there's an
300 million.
improvement.
Yeah, exactly.
There is an improvement.
Well, it's better than what we had.
Yeah.
You know, we spent $300 million and didn't sign up anyone on the line online. So that's a pretty remarkable record, I think.
Now, I had Senator Alan Bates in here, and I think Alan's a great guy. He's a wonderful person.
As do
However, but he sat here and defended Cover Oregon that it's working for small business. I'm trying to figure out what report is he reading.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I've heard Alan Bates say, you know, the rollout is da-da-da-da-da, and it's going to cost a little bit more, but you know, in the long run, your rates will go down. Now, I have yet to meet anyone other than people that are subsidized by the taxpayer that their rates have gone down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not happening. It's going to cost you more. You can't obviously keep your doctor. That's obvious. You can't keep your existing plan. I had a fellow out in Central Point that called me. He'd lost his plan. He had to go into that system, and it was less of an amount, like $20 a month less. But his deductible went from $700 to $2,500. So he lost money on it.
Well, again, I'm trying to figure out who's winning on this deal, and the answer, I think, is nobody. I only have you for a short time, so I want to ask you a couple of other things. Open primaries, Measure 90, huge controversy. I fought this when I was chairman for 4 years, and I've had some fairly significant Republicans call me and say, you're wrong on this, and I go, yeah, prove me that I'm wrong on this, when both parties now are saying no to it.
Well, I'm adamantly against it, and I'll tell you why. Why should we allow someone that's disenfranchised and disassociated themselves with a specific party have a voice in the outcome of the candidate?
Yeah.
Now, my solution, and I wrote an opinion piece to the Medford Tribune, but of course, you know, they've really printed that one.
Yeah.
But what I feel is, fine, you want someone in there, you go ahead and you have a primary and let the parties, the two parties, say, okay, you can open those primaries to Green Party, to whatever party, non-affiliates if they want to get together and be organized, doesn't matter. But get your own candidate in there. Then at the end, you may have 4 or 5 candidates, but I'll tell you what, at least each party will be represented by somebody that has the same thought process as the party.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm strongly against Measure 90 and no on 90 if you want to know where I am on that. But I'm trying to figure out how this ever got to the ballot and then have both parties turn against it. And all you got to do is look to California. This is what happens when you have an open primary. You get one party that's in rule and you can't do anything about it.
Well, they have it in South Carolina as well. And what the people in South Carolina explained to me was that they would pick out the weakest Democrat or the weakest Republican, and then just the opposite, they would vote for that person. So you'd have the 2 weakest candidates end up. I've never seen
a Republican cross over and vote for a Democrat in an open primary, but I've seen a ton of Democrats cross over and vote against a Republican. Mm-hmm. So it just doesn't work. All right, Measure 91, marijuana. You got a feel for that?
Yeah, I
know you're against it, but I mean, you got a feel.
I think it may pass. I'm not sure.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really concerned with that. And I'll tell you why. I was in the service with a guy that started out with marijuana, and 18 months later he was on heroin. This is his gateway drug.
Right.
And that's, all it takes is one.
Well, okay, there's been some money spent both ways on it. The one I see is, you know, legalize it, regulate it, tax it.
Well, if you tax it, you're going to exacerbate the underground, because if I go to the underground and I can buy it for $1, whereas if I tax it and it costs me $1.25, who do you think I'm going to go to?
Yeah,
I'm going to go to the underground.
Sal, last question. Jobs are still #1 in the state of Oregon, and what in the world can we do to get more companies to hire more and actually move here? Why are we losing companies to Nevada and Texas? Why can't we draw them to Oregon?
Well, you know, we say that we're business friendly, but I think that we need to reevaluate that. There's several factors. One is that when it takes a place like Walmart 8.5 years to get a permit to build a store that's already zoned for that they purchased the property and zoned for it, something's wrong with our land use system.
Right.
The other thing we need to do is we need to have shovel-ready sites where we do supposedly have some, but they haven't been very successful for some reason, but we have to get more jobs that are available that we can do in Oregon that aren't necessarily pollutant jobs. And what brings to mind is the unfortunate thing is we have money does grow on trees in this state.
Yeah.
And we have two renewable natural resources, water and timber.
Mm-hmm.
And we have yet to utilize either one of those. We let the water go out to Columbia, we don't store it, and then we do the same thing with our trees. We don't allow people to go in and use it, because a tree is just a crop. That's all it is. And I was just with the Coquille tribe over by the Coos Bay area, and they have an 80-year harvest plan. So they're rotating their crop every 80 years.
Right. And
that's what we should be doing. We should be doing that 100 years.
Yeah.
So it's simple.
Well, any last minute thoughts as we got 2 weeks away?
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting run. I think that, I think that the governor is the one that we have to really watch, because I think that one we've got a very good chance. I think Dennis has an excellent chance of being the next governor in Oregon. And if that's the case, at least we have a backstop in the state of Oregon and a say. Because I've been up there 11 years. I've been in the majority once. And really, and I was a freshman and we didn't get to do anything. So I'd like to go back and be in the majority sometime.
All right. Well, thanks for your service. You and Jan, you guys are just passionate about this, and I see you all over the place. You're quite the team, and so keep up the good work. Sal Esquivel, and how do people get a hold of if they want to talk to you?
Oh, they can just call our office at 541-734-4369.
Okay.
Or they can go on the website at the state or my local website. They can go to my local website is salesquivel.us.
.us. All right, thanks, buddy. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. Well, Ebola is on everybody's mind, and it is certainly an issue that has got our attention, and we're trying to figure out, all right, how bad is it? What are we doing about it? Are we handling this right? Well, I'm delighted to have with us today Michael Daugherty. He's the president and CEO of LabMD, an Atlantic-based clinical and medical laboratory. And Michael is here to help us understand a little bit more about this. Hi, Michael. How are you doing today?
Good morning. How you doing, Perry?
Good. Tell us about your company first.
Well, we're a diagnostics laboratory. We're based in Atlanta. We specialize in cancer diagnosis, and we're a niche player, and we've been around since '96. We've gotten the crosshairs of the government a little bit later with some cybersecurity investigations, so we're on pause as far as what's going on diagnostically, but I've been in medicine for 30 years and diagnostic testing since '96.
Wow, great. All right, Ebola. What an incredible thing. What's your take on it? Is it as serious as people think it is?
I think how the government's handling it is of serious concern. If it is as serious as people are concerned it should be. It's the government's job to surround themselves with people that know more than we do and be proactive. And I think that is what everyone's really concerned about, is if it is as bad as we are afraid it could be, is this a team that's going to handle it properly? And I can't see so far how that's the case.
All right, so you're kind of hitting on the main nerve. Can we trust the government? It doesn't appear right now that they know what they're doing every time.
That's exactly right.
I mean, they give a news report, or they give a news conference, and then 10 minutes later they're back correcting what they just said.
and that's it's like, what are your priorities? Like, let's just don't listen to what they say. Let's watch what they do. And we've got, first you've got Obama saying it's going to be fine and we need to worry about this, and then and it's constant reaction, not proactive. It is then you have the spin control. Then you have I don't need a czar. Now I've got a czar. And oh, suddenly I have this czar in 2 seconds. So you know he was having a czar in his back pocket. And then who is it? I mean, I don't know about you, Perry, but when I'm sick, I don't call my congressman. I call the doctor.
Right.
And so how are we supposed to feel better about the government having a hand on this when the czar is a politico? These are these little chips that are concerning people more and more and more.
Over the weekend, I saw, well, if we're serious about Ebola, let's just have all of the flights coming into the United States land first in Washington, D.C. we'll process them there.
Yeah, that would be the litmus test to see if they're afraid of it or not.
Yeah, there you go. So Ron Klein, who is he? He's not a medical doctor.
Good question, right? He's someone they all know. He's someone that has their back. He is someone that therefore will take the heat, fall on the grenade, and I love how they argue that he's the good organizational manager. And that if you work in medicine like I have, that makes you absolutely crazy because you have to know what you don't know. You don't have to be a doctor per se, or even though it would help, because they have different skills, but you at least have got to have a very broad medical background, know how the system works, because we don't have time to put these people on a learning curve. And it seems to me what he's really strong at is his relationships with the people in power, not so much people that have the knowledge. And that's why everyone's so up in arms about who Obama's choosing here. I'm sure he's a fine guy. That's not the point.
All right. So if the feds are dropping the ball, what pressure does this put on the states?
Well, it all rolls downhill, doesn't it? Right.
Yeah, right.
Because it rolls downhill in 6 months to a year, and that's the game. And the problem is here is such a high stakes issue, but the game hasn't changed that much, right? We have a spin artist heading it up. We've got someone that's got the back of the people in power, and they're relying on circle and confuse, and hopefully we'll get lucky and wait this one out. So the states are going to, look how much cleaning that Frontier Airlines jet cost.
Yeah.
It's not Frontier's fault. Well, how much has that hospital spent on one patient? What, as a laboratory medicine guy here, you can't underestimate how much it's going to cost just to test these patients bedside and make sure that everything is completely tight in the chain of custody. This is unbelievably expensive. These are the reasons why you want to keep the potential out of the country. Because, look how much just 3 or 4 are costing.
Yeah.
So it's very disturbing. It just, again, demonstrates they don't really know what's going on here. And
all right,
it's hard.
Michael, help me get my head around a very basic question. Why aren't we restricting travel into the United States? Why aren't we what's the argument that allows us to continue?
Well, this is what happens when you politicize medicine. This is what happens when you get, and so I think there's political concerns, okay? For some reason, he's okay to have a travel ban to Israel, but he's not okay having a travel ban to West Africa. To me, that's a political issue, and it shows that he'll put the politics above health. And now they're spinning it to, well, we haven't had that many cases, don't overreact, it's not going to help. That's bull. You err on the side of safety, and I think this is politics. I think he committed early. And he certainly will never say he was wrong. And we're in the heat of an election where they're going to lose the Senate, and they are doubling down hard. This is just like, before the 2012, we had Benghazi, and they doubled down hard. And now we've got this, and they're doubling. It's politics. Double down hard, save your skin, kick the ball down the road till after November.
Do you think the electorate now is becoming more aware how serious this is, and it is becoming a political football and not really taken seriously as a health issue? Do you think the electorate's starting to wake up on this?
I think a lot of people are. I get disappointed, though, because we shouldn't even have some of these races as close as we have them. We shouldn't have North Carolina close or Georgia close. We really shouldn't, and we do. So I hope the electorate's waking up, and I hope they wake up and don't get so disgusted they stay home. That's the problem.
Right.
But yeah, I think a lot of people are frustrated, and the key is feel powerless. And we can't feel powerless. So everyone's got to just go vote.
All right, you've touched all the hot buttons here. Is it wrong to think that the president ought to be brought up on derelict of duties? I mean, the first responsibility of the federal government is protection of its citizens. Now, that foreign and domestic, but this is a protection issue of the citizenry, and we just seem to be watching our government fumble the ball, and we're letting them get away with it. We're
going to let them get away with it in the short run. And the problem is how they play those politics for the loony left, the far left, the blue states that have so many electoral votes. You have to look at the cause and effect of doing that, because this is not a guy that is interested in primarily protecting the Constitution. He's just not. This is not a secret. But we've got such a large amount of people in the country that don't even understand that either. I mean, to understand someone's violating the Constitution, you have to understand the Constitution.
Right.
And so I don't think this is a quick fix problem, because I don't think we got in this mess this quickly. And so I think while I love that, and I can't wait till he's not in the White House, and I certainly hope the Senate goes red, I'm concerned about how they'll use it, because these people have no shame. They're going to use anything. And so, and they muddy the waters, and they play ball. Focusing on effectiveness, this is a deep hole we're in. I think the first thing we have to do is get that Senate red and neutralize him.
All right.
And then that's it.
Who's paying for this? Is Obamacare paying for this?
Oh, no. Well, Obamacare. Not really. Obamacare's probably protected itself, right? I mean, what code is going to be filed? What's Frontier Airlines going to do?
Yeah.
So not a lot. I don't know what that woman's insurance is. Really, I have no idea. We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, I guess she's lawyered up, because now she's been made a scapegoat, but she's lawyered up, getting ready to fight back. I mean, what is she going to fight?
She's got to fight for her health.
Yeah, right.
And then she can fight for her reputation. And it's difficult. I mean, people have to get a longer memory and learn what they'll do. I mean, they capitalize on our short memory. So I don't know how she's going to have any legal. I don't know. Hopefully she doesn't rip the hospital to shreds. I mean, this is what's going on here is what's happening to our hospitals, and that's what happens ultimately to patients. So we have less people wanting to be doctors and less people wanting to run hospitals, or even hospital organizations want to build them. We're going to lose. So we have to get our perspective here. And hopefully.
Michael, if people want to get a hold of you, it's the Devil Inside the Beltway.com. Is that the best way?
Yeah, there's the book at Amazon, and that's the website, thedevilinsidethebeltway.com. Well,
you're an informed guy. I want to have you back more often. This is interesting. Bottom line, where do you think this thing's going? I mean, is this just going to be a political football until after the election, or do you think it'll carry through to 216?
Oh, I hope it carries through 216, because I hope we learn from it and don't forget. But I hope it's not carrying through because we have more and more people sick. We've got a whole lot of things, but I think depends on how much it spreads. It really depends on, because if it gets contained, they're going to be dancing around. I told you so. I told you so. You're overreacting. So it depends on what happens the next 8 weeks in the election and with the disease spread.
Well, we saw what happened with one person getting it who was on a flight, and how that potentially affected hundreds of people.
Right, but that's because the media is covering it and all over it, right? But what is the media going to do in 3 weeks? I haven't heard much about a Russian plane going down. I haven't heard. I mean,
right. I hear
once they give it up,
yeah, right.
And if it's not their self-interest, they might give it. So there's moving parts here.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Michael Daugherty. And anyway, the Devil's Inside the Beltway.com if you want to check out his book and correspond with him. Let's stay in touch, friend. Good to see you.
All right. Good talking to you. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back, and of course October is Pastors Appreciation Month, and so we're having some local pastors in, but this particular guest is unique. I'm delighted to have with us our good friend Pastor Garris Elkins. He is the pastor for at least another week of Living Waters Church here in Southern Oregon, and love this man, and he's also an author. He's got some books here we're going to give away. We'll talk about that in a moment. But how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Good to see you.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Well, we need to explain. This is your last week as senior pastor.
It is.
And you felt like the Lord was helping you transition into something new. And I want to say, I've been around churches and church work and boards enough to know that few are handled as gracefully and as excellent as you've handled this.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is a model. Because you knew God was moving you on. He gave you the opportunity to mentor your successor, which I think is very unique. And you're ready for it, I think.
Well,
is Jan ready for it?
We are very ready for it. In fact, this goes back to 1998 when we were in Europe. And in 98, in the fall, the Lord gave us a 20-year template. We thought it was for Europe, but actually, lo and behold, it was for Medford, Oregon.
Wow.
And to the weekend, God has planned out the development of that 20-year plan in a gracious way. 5 years ago, I approached Ryan with the concept of him taking the church. And for the next 2 years, he and Kate would process that. When they said yes, 3 years ago, we let the leadership team at the church know. And then 2 years ago, I moved Ryan from what he was doing with youth and our Anthem School of Ministry, and I said, I want to make you what they would call in the church world an executive pastor, but we didn't use that term. Okay. It sounded too businessy. And I said, I want you to create the model of ministry that you're going to inherit. For these next 2 years that I'm the senior pastor, under my authority, you have complete authority to restructure this church in any way that you see fit. I don't want you to wear my armor. I don't want you to do it my way. I don't need to be in all the meetings. And I give you freedom because you know my heart and I know yours. And so Ryan is gifted in creating civilization. He has a gift to create the civilization of grace in a church. My ministry is more of a Joshua. So I opened up a doorway and then I invited this young man in now to create a civilization. And it's just delightful to see. So this Sunday, we're taking our weekend services and combining them into one service at 10:45. Be in prayer that we can get everybody in the building with video feeds and extra chairs. If it's good enough weather, we'll do it outside, but that's kind of iffy this time of year.
Yeah.
And then Ryan will become senior pastor, and then Jan and I are going to be on a loose leash on staff as teaching pastors. My next season, if I'm not careful, can be more busy than this one. In fact, in August, I was gone 4 out of the 5 Sundays around the nation doing conversations based on the book A Good Place about leadership transitions. Wow. And so 90% of what I'm doing right now is working with pastors, leaders, church boards, staffs, denominational people about how do you do a healthy transition, not to create the plan for you, but what's the journey of your heart in the transition, because the plans are a dime a dozen. They'll all work, right? But it's a journey of the heart. In all of this, early on I knew it was going to be a win at Living Waters when I gave the opportunity to Ryan, and he says, I'll do it under one condition. I said, what's that, Ryan? He says, if you stay. I said, well, I have no plans on going anywhere. And I said, however, let me say there will be 2 things that will make this sink or swim. One, if there's honor in the house. Yeah. And secondly, if I'm not the grumpy old pastor that wants to change things back, and I commit myself to not being that. So we laughed in our office, my office here a few weeks ago, when are the problems going to start? And it really has been a problem-free, gracious thing, and I think that's because God has given us a glimpse of what honor looks like.
This is remarkable because in my years of experience, I've seen pastors be asked to go or get voted out, and it's kind of like a public divorce. I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, it's kind of like, we're done with you. You're out of here. Go find something else. And I always thought, especially a pastor who's been there a long time, isn't there a role for that pastor inside the new leadership? If it can be done, and you're saying yes.
Yeah, I think it really can, as long as we understand that at some point we become spiritual parents. Right. I'm a spiritual father to many now, at age almost 65. By chronological age I am, but by ministry assignment, most of my contacts and invites that I get is to have a spiritual father come into the house and just look at the truth of the transition from different facets, and that's what a father does. Ryan said something early on, and
by the way, Ryan is Ryan Roden.
Ryan Roden and Kate Roden, both of them are going to take leadership.
Yeah, and I know Ryan's parents very, very well.
Yeah,
I know
great
Kate's
people.
parents as well, but Dallas has served on our board here at the Dove.
Great people.
Yeah.
When I grow up, I want to be like Dallas and Linda. They're just precious people.
Yeah.
But Ryan gave me he said, here's how I see this. And he said, you know, when families are young, they do Thanksgiving dinner at the young family's house. And then as the kids move out after a few years, mom and dad find that it's a challenge to do the Thanksgiving dinner, so it goes to the kids' house now after all those years. And mom and dad are asked to bring their green Jell-O salad. And it would not be Thanksgiving unless the green Jell-O salad was there. So Jan and I really feel our job is not to lead from the front, but to come back in kind of an oblique way and a firm leadership that emerges. And that doesn't mean that I need to have to have an understanding or agreement of everything that takes place. It means honor is not about agreement. Honor is about believing the best in the other person. So that's it.
Wow. So having a pastor's heart, you're called to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is God calling you away from that?
I think in America we have a pastor role, a one shoe fits all. But we forget that Paul said there are apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. I believe those are present in every healthy local church. For me, my role has been more visibly in my writing prophetic. When I deal with churches, there's an apostolic flow in that, developing blueprints from heaven and showing people what the possibilities might be. For me, I asked the Lord, show me what I'm supposed to do. I like to function out of a word from God. And He showed me a small little round table in a big vast room. And I'm assuming the room was the room of possibilities. He said, no, here's your small table, and there's 3 things on it: mentoring, writing, and teaching. Those 3 things I'm asking you to do. And I'll show you to what degree. And there were not a lot of items on each of those plates. It just was very simple. So that's what I'm doing a lot of now. And for the last 2 years, we've built into the transition plan a lessening of my visible presence at the church, so that the new people that would come in this 2-year cycle before the transition would see Ryan more visibly than they would be seeing me.
How's the congregation handle this?
You know, unless everybody's
lying to you?
Yeah.
Go ahead and say it.
You know, unless everybody's just swore to secrecy, we really haven't had any negative things at all. It's because we've invited people to the conversation. We said early on, we don't know all that, you know, we don't know everything that's going on. We want to learn together. And we've invited the congregation to have that conversation with us. And it's been very fruitful. It's honored them. There's not a nervous feeling in the church. There's just this mounting celebration. And like Kate Roden, Kate was our service host last week, and she says after the 26th of August, we won't have to use the word transition anymore. And a round of applause broke out in the church. Yeah. Because we're ready to do this. And Ryan and I had gone through probably the spiritual mantle transition about 6 months ago. I felt it the day it happened. And we're doing this long term for the church, not for Ryan and for me. We could have done this a long time before, but we're shepherds, and we want the people to walk through this at their pace, not at our pace. So,
when did you know that God was calling you out of pastoral ministry?
Before I came to Medford 15 years ago.
Okay. You know, the only reason I asked that question, because I remember having this conversation with you, because you and I had some meetings early on as to how you came and all that, and I thought, boy, that's really interesting. Here's a guy taking a church that he's going to leave.
Well, the first week I was here in Medford, God said, start giving this thing away. Okay. And so immediately, I started giving...
I mean, but you're called to be the pastor.
Yes, by the design of our denominational structure and maybe even the perception of the people. So you have to deal with those 2 things and not throw them away. However, most of my job was releasing ministry and not defining how that ministry is going to look. I feel one of the weaknesses of American pastoral leadership is that we tell each department head what they should look like in the expression of their ministry, and then we cut them free, and we end up building what I call a totem pole form of ministry, where the guy on top has to die or fall off for change to happen.
Yeah.
And we only add to the bottom. Well, we took this whole leadership model, laid it down on its side, and I allow each of the gifts to move at their speed, and I don't have to move as fast as they do. I just resource their gift. And what we've seen is the release and the explosion of potential in our leaders.
Wow.
It's been exciting.
So, you think God's going to use this? I mean, you've modeled something here.
We're part of the Foursquare denomination, and I am being used that way for the process of thinking. We've got a lot of baby boomer pastors that are coming up against that it's time to retire, but they don't know to take the next step. And my ministry is just to release them in the church from the fear of what the future is. And that little book there called A Good Place says that God is taking you to a good place, so don't be afraid. And so this is something, you know, they bought a few of those books to give out to our pastors who are thinking about transition, because you've got to seed transition before you plan for transition.
All right, I got to take a break here, but I want to ask you one other question.
Yep.
The word retirement or quit you don't find in the Bible.
No,
it's an American concept.
It is. And some people...
The Bible says occupy till I come. So he either comes and gets you by the grave or he comes and gets you by rapture.
I agree. I'm not planning on... retirement's a funny word. Some people will use that with what's going to happen on the 26th of next weekend. But we don't use that. It's like they have no other concept that when you're done pastoring, there can't be anything beyond. But the model that I look at is the Apostle Paul. And all the other disciples, they never went on the porch and drank mint juleps for the rest of their life. They
No, I don't think they did.
No, there's more. Yeah. There's more. I'm right now mentally and spiritually and emotionally at the peak of my performance. And so I have never been so in tune with who I am. And then why would I check out then and go off somewhere and be sorry that I didn't contend for more ministry? I think God gives us that opportunity to create a new future. And when we come back from the break, let me explain the desires and the delight of God, which is actually the transition plan.
All right, well, we're right back. Our special guest today is Pastor Garris Elkins. And by the way, last week is senior pastor at the Living Waters, but next week Ryan Roden takes over, but he's still around. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and our special guest today is Pastor Garris Elkins. He is the pastor of Living Waters Church here in Medford, at least for another week. He's also an author. How many books have you written?
There's 4.
You got Prayers from God, Throne of God, Prayers from the Throne of God, God Whispers, A Good Place. This is about the leadership one, right?
Yeah, it's about transitions in life.
And then the Leadership Rock, A Journey of Life in Leadership. And God's actually using you right now in these books, not only as you living it, but you'll be sharing it.
Yeah.
We're going to give these away coming up in just a few moments. We'll tell you. All right, so you wanted to explain?
You know, people ask about transition plans, and you know, you can go to Barnes & Noble, go to the business section, pull a book off and plan something. But it's got to be deeper than that. The Lord took me to the scripture in Psalms where it says, delight yourself in the Lord and He'll give you the desires of your heart. And as I began to look at those words and unpack them in their original language, the word delight is an interesting word. It means to be pliable. Delight yourself, be pliable in the hands of God, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. Well, when I unpack that word desires, it means a request. So if I delight myself in God and remain pliable in His hands, that delight that's transformed will begin to inform and transform the desires that I have. And so out of those desires, I can ask for what I delight in. And I find that God has given me the desires of my heart. In fact, it was Kate Roden last week. Kate was again hosting the service, and I said, Kate, see all this out here? This is what I prayed for, that I could give that final ministry assignment away at its peak of wholeness and health, where there's joy in the house. And my pastor always said, give it away when it's the healthiest, and when you minister, leave them hungry. And I've never forgot those two things. We have pastors have a tendency to want to strain every little bit of juice out of the turnip, but it's not healthy leadership to do that, and neither you can ever really get all the truth out anyway. And then finally, I felt like, God, I know I'm supposed to go when this place is healthy and whole. And it's all about mercy, because Jan and I in our marriage and our ministry in life is an expression of God's mercy. There were times that we could have hijacked what God wanted to do, but He had mercy on us. And in that mercy, He created a place of honor. We've got our warts and blemishes like every church because we attend there. But we're excited for what God is going to do, because Ryan and Kate have all the gifts and capabilities to take the ministry wherever it needs to go.
In your 15 years, has your desires changed?
Yes. They have changed, and I would probably use an overused word. They've radically changed. My feeling is that every church exists to host the presence of God, not to evangelize the world. That's a byproduct of hosting the presence. And what happens when we put evangelizing the world ahead of hosting the presence, we'll miss the nuances that only the presence can give. And it's my desire that that happens in how we speak, how we minister with each other, how we have worship take place in the congregation, and how we relate to the community. Because every believer carries the fullness of God. I mean, inside you is apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, every gift of the Spirit. If I were to take you and parachute you into newly discovered Atlantis that emerged in the Bermuda Triangle, and parachuted you in there, you carry everything within you to develop that millions of people into the fullness of the church God intended them to be. Once one person got saved, it would be an unstoppable force.
Wow, that's quite a concept, because you're touching on something that I beginning to sense. We get a lot of calls here at the Dove for help and all that. When we survey them, at least we have in the past, it's interesting, a vast majority, well in the 90% range, are from people who are already connected to a church. The reason they call us and not their pastor is for two reasons. One, they don't see their pastor as somebody they can get to, and two, they don't want their pastor to know they're in trouble.
Right.
Now, that tells me that there's a big difference between shepherding and evangelism.
Yeah.
I mean, you said hosting God's presence, that would be the form of shepherding versus evangelizing.
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm wondering, people are wanting a shepherd. They want somebody that will listen and pray and be with them.
I think that whole concept of what Paul talked about, apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, has to be understood again by the church, because apostolic leadership downloads a blueprint from heaven. The prophet speaks to it. The evangelist recruits to it. The pastor creates the environment in which it can grow and be nurtured, and then the teacher takes it, explodes it up, and teaches all the minute details. If we've got that concept, we would never want to create a ministry that was just a teaching ministry only, because the pastoral nurturing environment is the only place what is taught can be fruitful. And we don't want to have ministry without a blueprint that's larger than us. And we don't want to have a ministry where the prophetic voice, not the ornery person in the church that we don't know what to call except we call him a prophet, but that person who encourages us to believe that that blueprint's possible in our midst. And so that's how I see it working. And when those are not functioning, somebody will go outside of that realm because they don't feel like they have that ability to openly and honestly share, because they're afraid they're going to get thrown away.
Do you think there is generational differences in the approach to ministry?
Yes.
And the reason I ask that question is we're spending a lot of money these days in marketing to reach a group of people who could care less. Does that make sense?
It does.
How do you respond to that?
Well, I think we need a dose of courage, because there are models of ministry that will offend the traditional church establishment that God is leading the church into. And my generation and your generation, I grew up very content to do church the way we used to do it, but this young generation is not content to do that, and I applaud them in their lack of content for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put essence of ministry, not the direction of ministry, because I want them to be the young Joshuas to go out and take new ground. And we're starting to see that in our fellowship of churches, where Well, I don't know how this is going to sit with some of the listeners, but the first pub church in America has been opened up in Portland, Oregon.
Right.
And it's a church that's two-tiered. It has a community ballroom upstairs where they'll have church services, and then downstairs every week they have a pub, a real pub. And all the proceeds go to take care of ministry, or needs in the community. Tens of thousands of dollars are being given back into the community. It's not a drunk fest. It's not a place where Aunt Mary's probably going to be real comfortable. But in the culture there, people are coming to Christ. Jesus is doing things beyond your wildest dreams in a niche that you and I might not feel like is our calling. So I heard here that there's a group of ladies that go to some of these dance bars that they have here, and they go and they minister to the women who dance there. They love on them. Their ministry there is not to get them to change, but to love on them so that change could be a possibility. So I think the church is coming into a season of renaissance, and I'm excited for it. I'm very content to preach on Sunday morning and a midweek service and be the guy that is the father of the house, but I also need to realize that God has something else He's doing in the church that is very, very different than we've ever seen before, but the Spirit of God's leading it.
When did you know, and this is probably not a fair question, but when did you know that Ryan was ready?
I knew Ryan was ready about 10 years ago I started to hear the Holy Spirit on it. And about 6 years ago I knew he was ready, in that none of us are ever ready, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's ready to go, and broached it and with him, and then at the 5-year mark we had a real hard conversation about it. He and Kate went away to hear God on that, and God says, give your life to this city. And it was a profound moment for them. I knew in that moment when they came back and said, God has called us to give our life to this city, that because of that word, this thing was going to work. Because if there's not a word, in fact, everything that I teach about transitions starts with this: there must be a word for a transition. Because if you don't have a word at night when the doubt comes, you put your head on the pillow, you're not going to make it. You got to have a word that you hang on to.
How did you keep politics out of it?
I have to give some kudos to those that are my supervisors. I'm a regional supervisor, superintendent for 4 churches in Southern Oregon, but I'm also what they call a district-wide elder. From Alaska down here, I've got free movement in our group of churches, and there's a trust level that I have. I have a trust equity with them, and I gave them this model that I wanted to do, and my supervisor, Larry Spousta, said, just keep me in the loop. I want to see how this works out. We need a new model.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
How refreshing.
It was refreshing.
To have that kind of freedom so that you could actually hear the voice of God and go on it.
And I think they understood, too, that I wasn't going to get so far out on this without keeping them informed that I was going to embarrass them or cause shame to the fellowship of churches. So they've given me license, but it's under their covering, and it's been a blessing. All
right, let me give these 2 stacks of books away first, and then I have one other question. Caller number 3 will get God Whispers and the Prayer from the Throne of God, and caller number 4 will get The Good Place and the Leadership Rock, a journey of life and leadership. 541-776-5368. So caller number 3 gets the first stack, caller number 4 gets the second stack. All right, what would you say to the pastor who's beginning to feel, maybe my time is up? Mm-hmm. What would you say to that? How would you help them qualify that?
I would get trusted friends together to begin to process who they are, go to the identity thing first. I would ask them to discover and maybe even rediscover who they are. And then go back to that verse out of Psalms, delight yourself in the Lord, He'll give you the desires of your heart. Get in that process of allowing God to apply you, work you, and then trust that He's going to change your desires. And once that's done, then you can start voicing the fact that I want to make a transition.
How do you make sure that it's not burnout calling them to do this?
I think the trusted friends around you would say, no, you're burned out. Let's get through the burnout before we make this decision.
Well said. Well said. Mm-hmm. Thank you, my friend.
God bless you.
And congratulations, big weekend. I hope you can get the crowd in. And congratulations to Ryan and Kate Roden, who are now the new senior pastor, will be as of Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been a real model. I'm really, really happy with how you handled this. This is terrific. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.